Are you seeking fulfillment for your life? Do you want freedom from fear? That's why we're here. Welcome to Jesus 101, introducing you to the real Jesus. And now, here's your host, Elizabeth Talbot.
Welcome to Jesus 101. We're so excited you join us for one more episode of this series in the book of Acts that we have entitled Proclaiming Jesus. And today I want to start by telling you what the word gospel means. That's why I have this crown here, because the word gospel actually was used way before the New Testament and even before Jesus talked about the gospel or even Paul took a hold of this term. The gospel was actually a cry from the battlefield that the messengers would come to the city. See, the kings would fight away from the city, right? So the messengers would come from the battlefield to the city to say if their king won or if their king lost. And so if their king won, they would say in Hebrew, Bashar, Bashar. In Greek, it would be Euangelion, Euangelion, which meant good news, our king has won. So that's where the background of the word gospel is. That's why we have it in Isaiah 52:7. How lovely on the mountains are the feet of him who says, your God reigns, who brings good news. And that's the word euangelion in the Greek Old Testament. So every time you hear the word gospel, remember that is the good news that our King has won. That's why we summarize the whole Bible into words, Jesus wins. So this gospel was so important for Paul that he decided to go all over the known world of the time with this euangelion, with this cry of Jesus wins. And we have good news. He has done for us what we couldn't have done for ourselves. So I think it's a good background to understand where the word gospel comes from so that now we understand the rest of the New Testament that uses the word gospel. So today we're going to follow Paul throughout some very interesting cities. And he's going to be preaching the gospel throughout. And to help us do that, we have Pastor Dwight Nelson. Welcome, Dwight.
Thank you very much.
We're very happy you're here.
It is a treat to be here, and I'm learning every session with you. And this euangelion, actually, the word that you have taught me, this woohoo, is actually announcing that the king has won.
Absolutely.
Woohoo.
Anything that is joyful actually says, our king has won.
Amen.
You know,
Yeah.
so Paul thought that this was so interesting and so important and so eternal in consequences that he went throughout the whole world. And today we're going actually to see Athens and Corinth and Ephesus. And these are photos that we took ourselves.
Really?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so we went, like I think I told you already, in the footsteps of Paul. It was one of our first trips with my family. And so what we're going to do is start with a video. We're going to show you some areas of Athens and of Corinth and of Ephesus. I thought that we were going to go there and they were going to just show us a column and try to convince us that was, no, I mean, these cities are still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Ancient. So here we go.
Athens, the capital of Greece, has grown and been rebuilt over the years. Yet the magnificence of its ancient buildings and sculptures can still be seen today. Athens was home to the arts, learning, philosophy, and is considered to be the birthplace of Western civilization. While Paul was visiting Athens, he was deeply troubled by all the idols so prevalent throughout the city and wondered how he could reach the residents with the good news of Jesus. As the people there loved to talk about and listen to new ideas and teachings, Paul found a way to reach them when he saw an altar dedicated to the unknown God. Paul used this opportunity to preach in the Areopagus and explain to them just who the Creator, Redeemer God really is. From Athens, Paul traveled to ancient Corinth, a strategic city that sits on an isthmus, a thin piece of land that connects the Peloponnese to the mainland of Greece. It was here where Paul met Aquila and Priscilla, fellow tent makers. Corinth was a city filled with different socio-religious cultures. When Paul was rejected by the Jews, he focused his efforts on the Gentiles. It was in this city that Paul had a vision from God to not be afraid about preaching the gospel, but that God would protect him, as many of God's own people were still to be reached in this place. After leaving Corinth, Paul started his third missionary journey, eventually coming back to the flourishing city of Ephesus, which at the time housed a spectacular theater that came to hold 25,000 people, and the nearby Temple of Artemis, which was considered one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Later on, the magnificent Library of Celsus became one of its most prominent structures. While Paul was in Ephesus, a silversmith named Demetrius, who made idols of the goddess Artemis, grew angry that Paul was taking away his business as he was teaching people that idols were not gods at all. Demetrius spoke to his fellow workers. Not only is there a danger that this trade of ours fall into disrepute, but also that the temple of the great goddess Artemis be regarded as worthless and that she will even be dethroned from her magnificence. When the people heard this and were filled with rage, they began crying out, saying, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians." They rushed with one accord into the theater. Eventually the crowd was quieted down, and Paul went on his way, preaching the gospel. And the good news about Jesus continued to spread throughout the known world.
Wasn't that exciting? It's so exciting to see some of these ancient cities and actually kind of walk them the way that with Paul in mind. You know?
Because you realize that even though there's been a lot of archaeology in the intervening 2,000 years, it's still the actual place, and in some cases the actual stone and rock.
And it's very emotional.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I went to many places where you kind of your breath is taken away when you realize, oh, Paul stood here. We know the Bema in Corinth. Paul was there. You know. Of course, it happened to me with Jesus too in the Holy Land. Right? It's like.
Yep.
So we are going to follow him through 3 of the main cities where he was spreading the gospel and evangelizing, and see if we can learn something for our own evangelism, to learn some things from Paul.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to the book of Acts, chapter 17. We're going to actually go to Athens with Paul, and he starts by going through Thessalonica, and we did exactly the same trip, and very interesting. And the Jews are after Paul.
Constantly.
Yeah, they're not.
Because he's a threat to their entire system of belief.
Yeah, and they're so invested that they take trips. So they from Thessalonica, they will go to Berea. They follow
They keep
him, saying,
tagging him.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you never go through that? That people follow you around too?
No, they don't follow me. Yeah.
Well, good. So you can follow Dwight. He's safe to follow. But anyways, let's go to chapter. You're not going to say anything?
Not a word. I'm so eager to read verse 16.
Chapter 17. We're in Thessalonica, and start on verse 16.
Yeah. So Paul is waiting for his comrades in Athens. They're coming down.
Yep.
But he got there first. But while he's waiting, he is greatly distressed to see that the city was full of gods. So it's just rank paganism.
Yeah.
It's polytheism. It's just multiple gods. The Greek pantheon.
Yes, and I think it's important to know because when we go nowadays, see, Athens had this high level of culture, oratory,
erudite, intellectual seat of
the
all knowledge.
philosophers, Socrates and Plato.
Of course,
and so when we
Aristotle.
go to visit now, we see this art, these sculptures, but at that time, they meant something in their religion.
It wasn't art back then. It was just
exactly. There were
functional
temples.
reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Paul is looking around and he's like disturbed with this.
He's greatly distressed. So he reasons in the synagogue. He knows if he goes to the synagogue, there will be God-fearing Greeks plus the Jews. So he's working on Gentiles and Jews at the same time. So he teaches in the synagogues. One day he's in the marketplace going on and on about this resurrection, about a man who was dead but now is alive, and these Epicurean and Stoic philosophers come tripsing by. They overhear this nonsense. What is this seed picker, this babbler yakking about?
Yes.
But they're just curious enough because intellectual citadels the world over always are fascinated with a new idea.
Yes.
Yeah, let me try it out. Just run it by me. I'll let you know what I think.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if he would have been preaching the immortality of the soul, they would have been okay with it because some of them believed in that. Yeah. But he was actually preaching the resurrection of the body of Christ. And so for each city, I brought a little prop. Here I have a cross that we call the cross of Easter. Christ is risen. So just to remind you that the cross doesn't end there, that Christ was risen from the dead.
Right.
And this was an obstacle for the Greeks. The resurrection part.
It just was utterly illogical.
Yeah, and I think it's important to notice that for each group, different things are going to come up. For the Jews, the problem was crucified Messiah, right? It was the biggest problem. For the Greeks, one of the biggest problems is the resurrection, right? And so Paul has to find common ground to speak with them. So what is he going to find? It's interesting. Let's learn from him.
Okay. So they overhear this. They say, come on. Areopagus, go up on Mars Hill, the kind of the citadel, the creme de la creme are going to be there.
Yes.
And you tell us, while we're listening, you tell us. You make a defense of what you're trying to prove.
Yes.
So Paul stands up, verse 22, in the meeting of the Areopagus, and he says, people of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. This is a brilliant move because every public speaker, a communicator knows you have to build sympathy with your audience immediately, or they have this pushback that makes it like driving through mud to try to
Okay, let's
connect.
make that point, because some people seem to think that evangelism is going to argue with everybody.
Pick a fight everywhere you go.
Everywhere you go,
Yeah.
right?
Wrong.
And there's people that will question things. I mean, I remember one time I'm trying to evangelize somebody I'm working with when I'm in the business world. And there's certain doctrines of Christianity that are foolish to people that are not Christians, or at least he goes, come on, Elizabeth, virgin birth. Who has heard of that? Who's going to believe that? So the issue is no. Let's try to see if we can find something in common to build from and then teach, right? But there's people that seem to pick fights when they evangelize. So continue.
But Paul is strategic in his thinking.
Yes.
He says, I see that you are very religious. I'm complimenting you.
Yes.
My, you have so many gods. For as I walk around, I notice...
You're very religious.
Yes. And then as I'm walking through Athens, this is verse 23, I come across this inscription, to the unknown God. This was his perfect entree. He says, guess what? I know who the unknown God is, and I'm here to tell you.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is.
Well, can we learn from him this part of evangelism? You know, let's try to build that bridge that you just talked about. You know, in this case, he goes, oh yeah, the unknown God, I know the unknown God. I think we would be a lot more successful preaching the gospel if we had our minds open to see where we can find that.
That connect.
Yeah, he was walking around and found it, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Well, it works because it sets him up. I want to tell you who this is. I want you to think about it. You're welcome to challenge me. But it's the God, verse 24, who made the world and everything in it. He is the Lord of heaven and earth. He doesn't live in temples built by human hands. He's not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives life and breath and everything else.
Beautiful.
And he's beginning now. He's going to start quoting poets. He's going to quote their own, weaving it into the gospel presentation.
That is the point that we're trying to make. First of all, let me say that Paul always tried to look which audience he was talking to, and then because he used the prophets and the scriptures when he was in the synagogue all the time. Yeah. So here, the first thing he does, like you said, goes to the synagogue. Then he goes to the agora, the marketplace. But now he's in the court of the Areopagus, and they were like the court that ruled in religious and moral things. And, I stood on this Mars Hill. We went up the steps, and this is the place where he gave the sermon. And now there is a bronze tablet there with the whole sermon of Paul that they have actually put there.
Wow.
Yeah, and so when you're going up the steps, you know that this is the place where Paul gave this sermon.
That's how?
Yeah, it's really something. And so he, like you said, not only is he going to say, hey, I saw the unknown God, let me tell you about, but now he's going to start, instead of quoting the prophets like he usually does, he's going to quote the Greek poets. Yeah. So let's continue
We drop down to verse 28. He quotes one of the poets. For in him, this creator God, we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring.
Yes, he actually quotes two different poets.
Yes, he does.
And how he knows, I mean.
He was obviously well read.
And what does that tell us about trying to know our own culture in order to win them for Christ?
Yeah, it's just you come as a foreigner. You come as
outsider.
Just as an illiterate. if you attempt to draw them to your culture, to your mind, you have to go into their world. That's what the incarnation is all about.
Yeah.
God says, I'm going to your world. I'm not
Yes.
asking you to figure out where I am. I'm going to go and pitch my tent. John 1:14, I'm going to pitch it right beside you, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, I love that. You know, when in my previous life in the business world,
Yeah.
I used to love what they call the fifth discipline, which is the systems thinking, to understand systems in order to change them, right? And the fifth discipline, the systems have 11 laws. And one of the laws says, if you push a system from the outside, the system will push back twice as much.
Really?
So you can never
That makes
infiltrate
sense.
a system from the outside, and that is the incarnational model. If you want to change a system, you got to join it in order to change
True.
it. And that's why a lot of people that get frustrated with church or whatever, and they say, "I'm leaving." I say, "Well, but who's going to change it then? If this needs change, and if we keep leaving, who's going to,
Who's going to fix it? Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's important to remember that. So he explains Jesus to them using their own terms, their own poets, their own unknown God. And so he will preach the resurrection of Jesus.
Yes, he does.
So we can take it from verse 29.
Go ahead.
Being then the children of God, we ought not to think that the divine nature is like gold or silver or stone, which the whole thing was filled with that,
Right.
an image formed by the art and thought of men. Therefore, having overlooked the times of ignorance, God is now declaring to men that all people everywhere should repent, because he has fixed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness through a man, and that's Jesus, whom he has appointed and furnished proof to all men by raising him from the dead. So he does a whole sermon, and actually some people believe him. We don't know how successful he was, or if he even thought he was very successful, but we get a little verse here that some people believed him.
And I love this. He has commanded. Okay, he winks. Look, I understand you don't know this yet. I understand. But the day comes, Paul says, when he commands all people everywhere to repent. And you know, I was born in Japan. The first 14 years of my life, I lived in Japan. I'm going back to Japan in a month and a half to do public euangelion proclaiming, saying woohoo in the language of the Japanese. Because God says, okay, Japan, you've had centuries now, centuries. But I'm coming to you. I'm not just ignoring you. I'm going to call you to the same bright light of truth, of the gospel, that the whole world will be called to.
And it's important that you go, because you know the culture, you know the language, you know things that you'll have in common.
Hopefully, yeah, that would just be an automatic bridge.
Yeah, well,
But
God will bless you.
Yeah, it gives me courage. God wants He wants the whole world on his side.
That's
Yeah.
it. So one thing that we learned then, we learned many things from his time in Athens, but one point that we want to make, as we are trying to learn something from every city, is to try to find a point of contact, a bridge, something that the culture will say, oh, I can listen to this person because they actually know something about us, right? So from there, he will go to Corinth, and it's not that far away. And these photos,
the
like I said,
isthmus.
we took them ourselves. And this is one of the main photos in Corinth. I believe this is from the Apollo temple, actually. And Corinth is really interesting because it's still there. A lot of it is still there. So you have the temples,
antiquity.
the ancient. And then you have, like I said, the Bema, where we know Paul was taken. And then you have the main city, where all the shops were. Because being that Greece had ports, Athens, Corinth. You know, is the bottom part, right? So they had ports on each
either side of the isthmus. Yeah.
So there's a lot of commercial stuff going on. And so all this... the whole city with little shops, and I remember our guide saying, well, in this city, one of these shops was Aquila and Priscilla, and Paul selling tents. And just to walk there was like, you know. But it is like that. So let's learn what he does over there in this land bridge. Where do you want to start?
I picked up in verse 5.
Okay.
Silas and Timothy finally come down from Macedonia, and the last time we were together, we talked about Macedonia. So in the meantime, Paul is devoting himself exclusively to preaching, to testifying to the Jews that Jesus was the Messiah. So he always starts with them because they're his people.
Yes.
He's going to have the greatest interface with them. even more than the pagans.
Yes, and now he has devoted completely, because at the beginning he starts making tents, right?
Correct.
With Aquila and Priscilla in verse 2. And it looks like his companions brought some funds, it is believed, with them from
Offerings
Macedonia.
down from
and
up
so that
north.
for a time, Paul can actually devote himself fully now to preaching and not having to work. So some scholars believe that that's what that means. Continue, I interrupt.
So Paul is in the synagogue. He's going one-to-one with his rabbinical mind, a rabbi, knowing the Old Testament the way he does. He takes them on, and they oppose him. That's verse 6. And they become abusive, it actually says, the Jews. So he shakes off his clothes.
Yeah,
no more of you on me. I'm going to wash you out of my hair.
That's so funny. I believe when we're done taping these shows, you're gonna shake your. No, but what that meant is I don't want any part of, not even a speck of dust from this synagogue. Yeah. He leaves, and you're thinking, well, he left. Where did he go? He goes next door to somebody else.
to Titus, a worshiper of God. So he finds a God-fearer, not a Jew, but a Gentile who believes in the living God, the monotheistic God.
Yes.
And now he sets up shop to now, okay, Jews don't want me, I'm going for the pagans.
Yes.
And here, Elizabeth, I know we're coming to this moment where he is so overcome, though, with the challenge of this pagan city, because it is not just pagan, it is rank immorality. I mean,
Corinth had a lot of people.
You have prostitution. You have religious prostitution of men and women, boys and girls.
Yes.
So all of this is just
it's overwhelmed.
It's just like a moral cesspool. And how am I going to penetrate? And then one night, you know, in fact, you read this line. It's so powerful. One night, Jesus comes to him. He says, "Paul, I know what you're going through. I know the challenge." But the Lord spoke to him in a vision. Here come my red letter words now. Right. Do not be afraid. And your New American Standard, I like what it puts.
Any longer.
Yeah, any longer. In other words, it assumes you have been afraid.
Yes.
You're intimidated by this, but don't be afraid any longer.
Yeah, and it says why? It says, for I am with you.
Yeah.
And no man, verse 10, will attack you in order to harm you, for I have many people in this city. There's so much here to talk about. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I want to say a couple of things here. That do not be afraid. You never imagined Paul being afraid. I mean,
No, you don't. Mr. Intrepid himself.
Yeah, going, traveling, right? So I brought a little thing that means a lot to me. This is a prayer box that I made for my mother when she was diagnosed the last time with cancer. And I wrote, it's in Spanish because she spoke Spanish, Isaiah 41. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Exact words that Jesus says to Paul here. Mike always says that he read the 365 times in the Bible. It says, do not be afraid. One per day, 365 times.
Really? Right.
And usually it's accompanied by this. Do not be afraid, for I am with you.
Yeah.
The presence of God being the reason not to be afraid. But the second thing is, I have many people in this city. I imagine this, like the iPhone, when it's locating your car or... God knows it has the map exactly with his people where they are.
That doesn't mean they're church-going, Bible-toting people.
No. They had not yet been preached to.
These are people that have not yet even responded to God, but God knows their hearts.
Their heart.
He said, I have many. Every time I go into the city and do a series of meetings, I go right to this text.
Oh,
I say,
really?
God, please, you have many people in this city. I was just in Tokyo in January. Many people in this city.
How beautiful.
Yeah. God says, I got them. I got them.
That's wonderful. And it says that he settled there a year and 6 months. So he actually spent
He really moves in, doesn't he?
18 months.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think he's going through all these things.
Jump.
No, but he stays 18 months, 2 years, and so on. So now we have to go to the third city, and we wish we had a lot more time, but he ends up in Ephesus in chapter 19. And actually, he's going through many little places here and there, and then he ends up in Ephesus. In Ephesus, here, God decides that Paul should do some very extraordinary miracles. And sometimes we don't see Paul as a miracle worker, but actually he is.
He is.
He's doing miracles.
From the dead.
Yes. And chapter 19, verse 11 starts some of these miracles that we see. But he's doing a lot of preaching there. As a matter of fact, he finds a school. I like this. He finds a place to, okay, where can I preach? Because the synagogues are rejecting him, right? We took this picture in Ephesus, in the library. The library of Ephesus is
Really?
breathtaking.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's intricate carving.
I know, it's beautiful. And actually, it's a whole, I don't know how many, a mile or two of ancient buildings that you're just walking through
Mercy.
to end up there. And then the Agora, the market is there. And the big theater of 25,000 people where Paul spoke is there still. They still use it, by the way.
Wow.
And so there is a man there, Demetrius. Tell us the story. What's happening with Demetrius?
He was there when you were there?
No. I'm talking about here, Paul.
Oh, Paul.
With Paul, I mean,
you're
what
talking
happened?
about Demetrius the
silversmith.
the silversmith, the
Yeah.
idol maker.
Yes.
Yeah, because they had this legend that was it Artemis that fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
Oh, we have her altar here, and well, to cut the story to the chase, it's just a rumor began to spread that this Paul was out to bring down that entire religion, and of course he was.
Yeah.
But that was not. He didn't approach it that way. I'm
Yes.
sure he didn't get up and say, "By the way, let me tell you about your goddess."
Yes.
But he keeps preaching the truth. He preaches the God of creation, the God of the God of heaven.
Yes, and one of the lessons we want to learn here is that people will oppose
Well, I
the
wonder
gospel.
why you had all this money.
Yeah,
here.
they will oppose the gospel for many reasons. In this case, it's even economic. So don't be frustrated or don't give up when you're preaching the gospel. There's a lot of motivations that people have. In this case, he is going to oppose Paul because he's taking away his,
livelihood.
Yeah, but other people will do it because of politics. Other people because of jealousy. Jesus says, "Don't be afraid. I am with you. Keep preaching the gospel, no matter who opposes you." I think we have to keep going because we know how the story ends, and Jesus wins. Well, I have to head to the cross. Sorry that the program is so short and we have so much to tell you, but we're going to go to the cross, and I want to finish with this eternal gospel that the whole Bible is about. So, the Bible tells us that there will be 3 final evangelists, 3 final messengers that will come with the eternal gospel. We call them the 3 angels' message or messages. You can read all about it in Revelation 14. And these 3 messengers come saying, we know who wins. That's why it's the eternal gospel. The first messenger says, God the Creator wins. Worship Him. The second messenger says, the other power lost, so don't worship them. The third angel says, choose the one who wins. So those are the 3 angels' messages. Worship the Creator. He is the real God. Number 2, the other power has lost. Number 3, choose the one who wins. So I'm hoping that you will know that you also have a choice, and it's an eternal choice. It's to believe the cry from the battlefield, Jesus wins, our God reigns. And you know what? He's coming back.